I never thought I'd be the guy who found out his wife was cheating on him. I mean, I knew every relationship has its rough patches, but I was confident we were solid. We had our plans, our future mapped out. Or so I thought. It all started out like any other evening. She was late coming home from work, which wasn't unusual, but today there was something in the air I couldn't quite put my finger on. When she finally walked through the door, her face was a little too bright, her cheeks flushed. I could smell her perfume, familiar but somehow tinged with a nervous edge. That's when I noticed her phone was buzzing furiously on the coffee table. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe a work message, maybe a friend. But then I saw it. Her phone screen lit up with a message from her boss. My stomach clenched. The words on the screen made my blood run cold. It was flirtatious, intimate. They were talking like they were more than just employer and employee. Stuff about meeting up after hours, secret kisses, laughing like they shared some private joke. I stared at those texts, my palms slick with sweat. My heart pounded so loud I was sure she could hear it. I didn't say anything at first. I just sat there, staring. My mind was a tornado of shock and disbelief. How long had this been going on? Right before our wedding plans, right under my nose. I could feel the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I wanted to yell, to scream, but all I managed was a quiet, trembling voice. "Who is this?" She froze for a second, her eyes widening just a little too quickly. "It's nothing," she mumbled, trying to swipe away the screen, but I caught her wrist before she could hide it. My fingers felt cold but firm, and I kept my gaze locked on her. "It's not nothing. Who is he?" She looked away, but I saw the guilt. The real punch to the gut came when she finally admitted, "It's just my boss. It's nothing serious, I swear." The way she said it, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. But I knew better. I could feel it, the lie, the truth in her eyes. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought about all the signals I'd missed, the little things I brushed off. The late nights, the secretive texting, the way her phone always seemed glued to her hand. She was good at hiding it, but not good enough. Not from me. The worst part, the betrayal was already deep. It wasn't just a one-night stand or a fleeting mistake. This had been going on for months, probably since before our engagement, maybe even longer. I felt sick knowing she lied to my face, knowing she hid her secret behind a mask of normalcy. I wondered how many nights she spent with him, how many words exchanged behind my back. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her and him together, smiling, touching, whispering like they shared a secret world I was shut out of. My stomach was churning, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. All I kept thinking was, how could she do this? How could she betray everything we built in such a cold, calculated way? That's when I started to plan. I knew I couldn't confront her blindly. I had to be smart, careful. I needed proof, something irrefutable, something that would make her realize I wasn't going to be played for a fool. I started digging through her phone, her emails, anything that could give me an edge. I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. I needed to see the full scope of her betrayal, and I needed to do it on my terms. I'd find her weak spot, expose her, and then I'd decide what to do. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let this go, not without a fight. I was done being the guy who got played. If she thought she could cheat and walk away, she had another thing coming. As I sat there in the dark, clutching her phone, the evidence burning in my hand, I realized my life was about to change forever. I just didn't know how much. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a stomach full of knots. I couldn't get the images out of my head, the texts, the secret meetings, her lying to my face. I kept blinking, trying to clear the fog, but that feeling of betrayal gnawed at me relentlessly. My mind kept circling back to what I'd discovered, every detail burning into my brain. I knew I couldn't just sit on this. I needed a plan. I needed to be strategic, calm, and precise. First, I spent the day gathering more evidence. I went through her emails, her social media, her call logs, anything that could give me a clearer picture of her affair. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was boiling. My palms were sweaty every time I saw her name pop up on the screen or when I found a new message. I made sure to keep everything documented, screenshots, printouts, notes. If I was going to do this right, I had to have proof that couldn't be denied. That evening I confronted her. I didn't yell or raise my voice. I just sat her down, looked her straight in the eyes, and laid everything out on the table. I told her I knew about her affair with her boss, showed her the messages I'd saved. Her face went pale, then red, then full of guilt. She tried to deny it at first, but she couldn't hide the truth. I saw the way her hands trembled, how her eyes darted away like she was trying to escape the reality. "You've been lying to me for months," I said, voice low but firm. "While I was planning our wedding, while I was dreaming of our future, you were secret meetings with him behind my back. How could you?" She broke down then, tears streaming down her face, mumbling apologies. I felt nothing but cold. I was furious, but I kept my composure. I told her I needed time to think, that I wasn't going to let her off the hook that easily. I also made it clear that I wasn't interested in a fake reconciliation. If this was over, she was going to have to pay the price. That night I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat in the dark, going over every detail, every possibility. I knew I had to hit her where it hurt. I couldn't just walk away from this. She needed to see that I had the upper hand. So I devised my revenge plan. It wasn't going to be about petty revenge or overt cruelty. No, I was going to be smart. I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal, the feeling of losing everything she thought she had. The next step was to create a scenario she couldn't ignore, a trap that would force her to face her actions head-on. I decided to make her believe I was unaware of her ongoing affair, to keep her thinking she still had control. I'd pretend to be the innocent husband, but secretly, I'd have everything ready to expose her completely. I set up a burner phone, an untraceable device, to send her subtle messages. I kept it hidden just enough for her to notice that someone was watching her. Every message I sent was calculated. Little hints, vague accusations, enough to keep her paranoid, but not enough for her to realize I was behind it all. I wanted her to sweat, to start doubting her own secrets. Meanwhile, I gathered more physical evidence. I had a friend, trustworthy and discreet, place a hidden camera in her office. I didn't want to catch her in the act, but I wanted proof of her meetings, her interactions. I needed her to slip up in a way that confirmed everything. Every time I saw her on that footage, talking with him and laughing like they're unbreakable, I felt a sick sense of triumph simmering below my anger. Throughout this process, I kept my cool. I didn't show her my hand, not yet. Instead, I played the calm, betrayed husband. When she'd come home, her eyes filled with guilt, I'd just sit in silence, watching her stumble through explanations I already knew weren't true. I'd ask questions, push just enough to make her uncomfortable. I wanted her to feel the pressure, to feel her carefully crafted lies unravel. All the while, I was planning the final confrontation. I knew I couldn't let her keep living in her fantasy world. She needed to understand that her actions had consequences. I was ready to make that happen. It struck me then, sitting there in the quiet, how much I'd changed in just a few days. The betrayal had turned me into someone I barely recognized, a calculating, cold version of myself. I could feel the anger coursing through my veins like a fire ready to ignite. But I also knew I had to be deliberate. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my life, my future. And I was determined to see it through. I'd wait for the perfect moment, when she thought she was safe to strike. When she least expected it, I'd reveal everything. The evidence, her lies, her world falling apart. And then I'd see if she still wanted to play her games. Because I wasn't going down without a fight. The days that followed felt like walking on glass. Every moment I wasn't gathering evidence or planning, I was fighting to keep my anger in check. My stomach was in knots, my palms constantly sweaty, and each time I saw her face I could see the guilt and fear lurking behind her eyes. The worst part, she acted like everything was normal. She'd smile, try to act affectionate, but I knew better. She was walking a tightrope, and I was the one holding the strings tight. I decided to turn up the pressure. I kept up the subtle messaging on that burner phone, sending her tiny hints that someone was watching her. I wanted her to start doubting herself. I wanted her to feel the paranoia creeping in, to see her unravel before my eyes. Meanwhile, the camera footage from her office confirmed what I suspected. She was still sneaking around, meeting him after hours, laughing in a way she never did with me anymore. Seeing her like that made my stomach churn but also fueled my resolve. One evening I decided it was time for a more direct approach. I waited until she was in the shower, her phone left unattended on the nightstand. With trembling hands, I opened her email account and printed out every message, every meeting invite, every flirtatious exchange. I needed proof she couldn't deny. When she came out wrapped in a towel, I was sitting on the bed, the papers spread out in front of me. She froze when she saw the documents. Her face went pale, eyes wide with shock and fear. What is this?" She stammered, voice trembling. I looked at her coldly. "Your emails, your texts, I found them all. You've been lying to me this whole time." I pushed the papers toward her. "Explain this, or do you want me to do it for you?" She sank onto the bed, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was so caught up in everything at work. He's the only one who understands me. I swear I never wanted to hurt you." I cut her off. "Stop. You've hurt me enough. I trusted you. I thought we had something real. But you've been playing me this whole time. Doesn't that make you feel anything? Or are you just so selfish you don't care?" She looked like she wanted to say something, to beg, but no words came out. Just silent tears. That's when I realized I couldn't just leave her retreat into her guilt. I needed to escalate. If I was going to do this properly, I had to make her see how much she'd lost. I told her I wasn't interested in a messy breakup, not yet. I said I wanted her to understand the full weight of her betrayal. That's when I revealed my revenge plan. I told her about the hidden camera, the anonymous messages, and how I was planning to confront her in front of everyone. Her eyes widened even more at that. She begged me to stop, to forgive her, but I knew that was just words. Words that meant nothing now. I decided to give her a taste of her own medicine. I arranged a meeting with her boss, pretending it was just a casual work catch-up. I wanted to be there, silently observing. I knew I couldn't trust her to tell the truth after everything. When I sat at the corner table, pretending to be distracted by my phone, I saw them walking in. Her hand was on his arm, her face glowing with a false enthusiasm. His eyes flicked to me briefly, and I saw the flicker of guilt there. Good. They didn't see me right away, but I knew I had the upper hand. I sat back, calm on the surface, but inside I was seething. Watching her with him, knowing what she'd done behind my back, made my stomach clench so hard I thought I'd be sick. I was ready. The moment was coming. Later that evening, I slipped the truth into her head, the evidence, the secret meetings, the lies. I told her I was done, that I wasn't going to let her keep playing her game. I handed her a set of keys to her own apartment, told her to gather her things, and that I wanted her out by the end of the week. Her face crumpled and she begged me to reconsider, but I wasn't listening anymore. I knew I had to cut her loose for good. That night, as she packed her bags, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with rage. I had everything I needed to end this chapter. I was finally free from her deception, from the betrayal that had haunted me every waking moment for days. I didn't want to just hurt her. I wanted her to understand the damage she'd done. When she finally left, I stood at the doorway and watched her walk away, feeling a strange emptiness settle in. It was over. The house felt colder, emptier. I closed the door behind her, locked it, and took a long, deep breath. It was over, but I knew this wasn't the end of the story. There was still more to do, more to settle. But for now, I had made my move. I'd taken back control. And I knew, without a doubt, I'd never let anyone do this to me again. The silence that followed her departure was deafening. For a while, I just stood there, staring at the empty doorway, feeling the weight of everything I'd just done. The house was cold, the air thick with the smell of her scent still lingering as if her ghost refused to leave. My stomach was a mess of knots, part relief, part rage. I'd finally pushed her out, but the ache in my chest was something I hadn't anticipated. I sat on the edge of the couch, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. Every part of me felt numb, yet alive with this strange sense of purpose. I knew I had to do more, had to cement this victory. I couldn't just walk away now. Not after everything. I owed her that much. But I also knew I had to be careful. She'd be dangerous in her own right, desperate and humiliated. The moment I handed her the keys, I felt a flicker of satisfaction, but it was overshadowed by the uneasy feeling that she'd try to come back, or worse, fight me. I wasn't naive enough to think she'd just disappear quietly. So I devised my next move. I needed her to understand that I was serious, dead serious, about cutting all ties. I contacted a lawyer, not to threaten her legally but to get advice. I wanted to make sure I protected myself from any future fallout, especially if she tried to spin stories or claim I was being unreasonable. The lawyer told me to keep everything documented: text messages, emails, the evidence I'd collected, even her reactions. It was a cold, clinical conversation, but it made me realize how vital it was to stay calm and strategic. Meanwhile, I also made some calls to my closest friends. I needed support, and I needed to start repairing the damage inside. I told them what had happened bluntly, no sugarcoating, no hiding my fury. Their reactions were predictable: anger, disbelief, and a lot of counsel to stay strong. One friend said, "You're better off without her, she's not worth the pain, but don't let her manipulate you now." That night I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every moment: the discovery, the confrontation, the moment I handed her the keys. I kept thinking about her face, the tears, the endless lies. A cold, bitter part of me wondered if she'd ever really feel remorse, or if it was just guilt for getting caught. That thought made my stomach turn. The next morning I woke up early, determined. I needed to do something concrete. To mark the end of this chapter, I decided to go to her apartment and retrieve the last of her things. I wasn't going to do it out of anger. I wanted to do it with dignity, as the final act of cutting ties. I grabbed a friend I trusted to help me carry her stuff. We pulled up, and I made sure to keep my face composed, my voice calm. As I packed her belongings into boxes, I couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of relief and rage. I was finally reclaiming my space, my life. But every item I touched felt like an anchor to her: her clothes, her favorite mug, her perfume bottles. Each one reminded me of how much I'd trusted her, how deeply I'd loved her. Now all that was left was a pile of memories I wanted to erase. While I worked, I overheard her voice on a call. She was pleading, crying softly, probably to her boss or a friend, I wasn't sure. The sound cut through me like a blade. I paused, listening to her desperate voice, feeling that familiar heat of anger rising again. That's when I realized I wasn't done. Not yet. There was still one last step I needed to take to truly finish this. I took her phone out of my pocket, activated the GPS tracker I'd hidden earlier, and checked her location. She was still nearby, probably trying to see if she could come back. My finger hovered over the button to disable her access to my life completely. I knew I could cut her out, but I also wanted her to see I was in control now, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I decided that I'd send her one final message, one that would leave her knowing I was watching, waiting, and done playing her game. I knew I had to be precise. I typed carefully, making sure every word was deliberate. I told her I knew the truth about her affair, that I had all the evidence, that she'd lost any chance of saving what little was left of our relationship. I also warned her that if she ever tried to contact me again, I'd take legal action. I pressed send, and that was it. Her phone buzzed, probably her panic response. I felt a strange calm settle over me. I was done. She was gone. Her influence, her lies, they were all finally out of my life. I looked around her apartment, knowing I'd never step foot in it again. I walked out the door, locking it behind me. My heart was pounding, but it was also lighter somehow. I'd done everything I could. The chapter was closed. I was free. And now I'd start rebuilding from scratch without her shadows haunting me. I learned something that day. You can't control someone's betrayal, but you can choose what to do with the aftermath. I chose to end it on my terms. For anyone in a similar situation, trust yourself, be smart, and never let anyone take away your peace. After I finished packing her things and sent that final message, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and clarity. The chaos was over, or so I told myself. The house was finally mine again, and I had taken back the control I thought I'd lost. But beneath that calm, a cold voice inside warned me this wasn't really the end. Just the beginning of something new. The days that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the silence in my apartment. Every now and then, I'd catch myself looking at her empty side of the bed or her favorite mug sitting untouched on the kitchen counter. It was like a ghost had moved out, leaving behind an echo of what once was. I kept telling myself I was better off without her, but the ache of betrayal lingered. like a wound that refused to heal. I kept up my surveillance, just to be sure she wouldn't come back or try to mess with me. The GPS tracker I'd planted in her phone proved invaluable. Every move she made I knew about. She was still nearby, probably trying to figure out her next move. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe guilt, maybe regret, but I knew better. She was calculating, probably planning her own comeback. That's why I stayed vigilant. One day, I decided it was time to confront the final piece of this puzzle, her. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just going to disappear into the background. I needed her to understand that I'd come out on top. So I arranged for her to meet me at a public place, an empty parking lot where we could talk, or what I hoped would be a decisive confrontation. When she arrived, her eyes looked tired, hollow even. She avoided eye contact, clutching her purse like it was her lifeline. I was calm, deliberately so, but my stomach was tight with tension. I wanted her to understand that she'd lost everything, her marriage, her reputation, her sense of control. "I see you're trying to keep your distance," I said quietly but firmly. "But I know what you're doing. You're trying to come back to fix things." "Sorry, I'm done playing that game." She looked down, her fingers fidgeting with the strap of her purse. "Please, I didn't mean for it to get so out of hand. I was weak, I guess, but I want to fix this. I don't want to lose everything." I shook my head, feeling the adrenaline surge again. "You already lost everything. Your lies, your affair, everything that mattered. I've got your messages, your emails. I've been watching. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm here. Maybe just to tell you I'm done. You lied, you cheated, and I'm not interested in pretending anymore." She looked like she wanted to cry, but her tears did melt me anymore. They just made me feel more distant. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the final documents I'd prepared. The proof of her ongoing affair, the emails, the pictures of her with him. I handed them over. "This is what I've been holding onto," I said, voice steady. "You can keep lying to yourself, but I've seen enough. And I want you to know this is the end for us. I'm done with the lies, the betrayal. Don't contact me again. Ever." Her face crumpled, tears streaming freely now. "Please, I love you. I was weak, but I'll make it right. Just give me a chance." Too late, I cut her off sharply. "You had your shot. You threw it away. This isn't about forgiveness anymore. It's about moving on, and I suggest you do the same." I turned to walk away, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders as I did. But then she called out, voice trembling. "You'll regret this. You'll see. He's just a phase. You'll come back, and I'll be waiting." I didn't look back. Instead, I just kept walking, feeling a strange sense of liberation. I'd finally taken control. I'd cut out the poison that was destroying me. As I reached my car, I realized how much lighter I felt. No more secrets, no more lies, no more pretending she cared. I'd finally done it. I closed the door, started the engine, and watched her disappear into the distance. That was the day I decided I'd never let someone else's betrayal define me. I'd rebuild, stronger and wiser. And anyone who thought they could get away with that kind of betrayal needed to know there's always a price. And I was finally paying mine. The truth is, the only person who can truly control your happiness is you. And sometimes that means walking away from the chaos, no matter how tempting it is to stay and fight. Weeks later, I looked back on everything with a strange sense of clarity. The house was empty now, no her things, just the quiet echo of a life I once thought was mine. I'd handed over her keys, closed that chapter, and started the slow process of rebuilding. It wasn't easy. Sometimes, late at night, I'd catch myself wondering if I'd done the right thing, if I'd gone too far. But then I'd remember the lies, the betrayal, the way she'd shattered the trust we built. And I knew I'd done what I had to do. Getting rid of her things was oddly liberating. I took the last of her clothes to the thrift store and handed over a box of her personal belongings. The scent of her perfume still lingered in some of the shirts I kept, faint but recognizable, a ghost of what was. I poured myself a drink, sat on my balcony, and watched the city lights flicker. For the first time in months, I felt like I was reclaiming my life. I finally blocked her number, deleted her contact from everything. No more waiting, no more wondering. I cut every tie I had to her, every reminder of the betrayal. The final act was completing the legal separation, signing the papers and walking out of the courtroom feeling a strange mixture of relief and resolve. I'd taken everything back, piece by piece, and now it was time to move forward. Reflecting on everything, I realize how much that experience changed me. I won't pretend I'm unscarred. There's a deep wound that still lingers, a constant reminder that trust is fragile, but it also made me stronger. It woke me up to the fact that sometimes love isn't enough to save you from betrayal. Sometimes you have to be your own protector, your own advocate. To anyone reading this and facing something similar, here's what I learned. Trust your instincts. Don't ignore the small red flags, those little gut feelings that things aren't right. Once you find proof, don't hesitate to act decisively. It's better to walk away with your dignity intact than to stay and let the poison seep deeper. The pain might be intense at first, but it's temporary. The freedom you gain is worth every sleepless night. Most important of all, never forget your worth. You are not defined by someone else's betrayal. No matter how broken you feel, you can heal, you can rebuild, and you can find happiness again, better, stronger, wiser than before. I closed the door on my past and stepped into my future. And as I do, I carry one truth with me. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and never looking back.